All right, YouTube, what is going on? We have a great CLM in store for you today. We are going to go over what it's like for a CrossFit Games athlete's off-season, exactly where it starts, where it's going to end. We're going to go through all the little nitty-gritty parts that you've always wanted to know, and we've got for you, okay? So stick around. I think you guys are going to like what we've got to say.
All right, so first off, we have to identify what is the off-season for a CrossFit Games athlete, right? So the in-season is basically February to the end of July. So counter to that, so the first week of August is basically the first part of your off-season that basically rolls all the way until the Open starts up in February. So that's the time domain we're looking at, 5-6 months, something along those lines.
And we need to describe who we exactly are talking about. We are talking about CrossFit Games athletes. They've been there before, they're there right now, they're at that level. We are talking about no one else unless you are able and ready and good enough to simply go to the CrossFit Games. Team, teen, regular individuals, I don't care, but CrossFit Games athletes.
So here we are. Here's our timeline that we're going to roll through basically the entire off-season year. And so basically right now it is Sunday, 5 p.m., the last day of the CrossFit Games. You're done. The award ceremonies are over. You either took first place or you took last place, and you're sitting there and you're eating dinner and you're thinking about, well, what do I do now? So that's where we come in to fill in this little space right here.
First thing we suggest and what we did was take a mental month. I like Joey said, it's a mental month. I truly believe it's important to at least give yourself some time to regroup, reevaluate, and rethink. Go on vacation, whatever it may be. Some people are like, oh, I don't need any. You do need this time, right? I mean, I needed it when we ended. Even if it's to get your life back on track, it's super important.
Yeah, and mental month is not off month. Like you're not working out for a month. That's not what we're saying at all.
No.
It's just that maybe the workouts that you're doing are, a lot more just things you enjoy, like a longer run for Colin or something like that.
Maybe you're getting into class more often.
Getting into class more often to just, meet up with your community again. They've been cheering you on the last, 6 months going to the games, and so maybe you're just kind of getting back in with them, or your family spending more time with them, going on vacation with them. That is what we're talking about here.
Absolutely. The first thing you're going to do during this mental month, besides a little bit of a recharge, is you have to start reevaluating your goals. What are you truly good at? That's fine. You need to know that. That's important. But the most important thing is, what do you truly suck at? What caused you to get the place that you did get? And even if you won, even if you were the best, how can you get better? That is how Matt Frazier, that is how Rich Froning, that is how Tia Claire Toomey, that is how all these amazing athletes have done that. They simply never stopped getting better at what they thought they were bad at.
Right, and it's the weaknesses that get less and less that make them unbeatable. They look themselves in the mirror, and Matt Frazier will tell you straight up, it's like, dude, I was so bad at flipping a freaking pig. So he went and he did 100 pig flips like 3 times a week or something like that.
Right.
Like,
every Sunday, I remember him saying.
Every Sunday. Like, that is what you have to do, and this is the time where you got to look yourself in the mirror. Like it's time to pay attention to what you just sucked at right now.
Something else that's very important that we never focused on as much, we probably should have done a little bit more. We didn't do terrible, don't get us wrong, but the nutrition aspect. And we're not going to go into nutrition and how you feel. That is to each their own. It is not for this video.
That's a different video for sure.
Absolutely, it is a different video. But what do you feel like at what weight? What did you feel like if you had a higher carb diet or a higher fat diet, or maybe more protein, less protein? When did you eat during the day? Those are all things you can start reevaluating and thinking about per your performance in the events that you're at the CrossFit Games.
And even body weight too. I mean,
absolutely.
We've talked about it 100 times back and forth of like the Colin Carty at 225 is a different athlete than the Colin Carty at 215.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like gymnastics wise versus 1 rep max front squats, it's going to feel different. So you have to know that going in.
Absolutely, and you got to figure out which one's more weak for you, which one's better for you.
Right. Another important part about mental month is laying out the framework for your entire year and which competitions you want to do, because you're going to have to be doing some big competitions. You need to start literally planning it right now so that you can spell out the rest of your year and you know what you'll be doing.
All right, so we're going to jump a little bit forward and we're going to go to the middle of training season. Comps are starting to move forward. Your full-time job now is being a CrossFit athlete, which you probably already don't have a job, which we haven't mentioned yet. But It's like November through mid-January-ish area, and everything now revolves around CrossFit again, and that is your life. So what you've got to do is you've got to start reevaluating where you're at and where you want to go. If that's nutrition, if that is still your weakness work, whatever that may be, because in my opinion, my own personal opinion, I think the October through the February, the October through the January is the most important part for any CrossFit Games athlete. And I think that because when people start stepping off the gas pedal is the holidays or all these things that you don't think they add up, but when it comes to game time and you're face to face with Justin Medeiros, that is when it happens. That is when Tia Claire Toomey beats you, because they don't take those 3 or 4 months off, and that's going to set you up for when the season starts. You don't have that same ability to train those weaknesses.
That's a very good point, and that's also where the regular members and the friends and the family, they're looking for you now. Like, where have you been? I haven't seen you in 3 weeks. You haven't been texting me. Are we even friends anymore? Yes, we're great friends, and I love you, but at the same time, like, this is the now. Like, I have no other desire or dreams right now other than to just kick my own ass every single day, because I have to get better for the games in 6, 7, 8 months.
Well, and it's a great point, because they start to get into a rhythm where you may skip a workout and you may skip 2 workouts, and now you're doing stuff you're good at again, and then you forget your weaknesses and you're not hitting them as hard. And that compounds over a year and another year. That compounds to a lot of missed weakness work, and that's where I see the majority of people fall off, in my opinion.
Yeah, so at this point, you're basically thinking to yourself, I am such a good athlete that the Open is just another test, no big deal. I'm going to have to do it, whatever. It is time to, think about what's going to be popping up at the CrossFit Games that I need to start training. It's far enough out now where if you're bad enough at something, let's say running, for example, there's going to be a ton of running, there's probably going to be swimming. You need to be doing CrossFit-specific, CrossFit Games movements and workouts, not just kind of whatever you want to be doing. You have to do heavy lifts under fatigue. You have to, do these running and these
triple unders, all this stupid shit that could possibly show up.
Pegboards, things that only show up at the games typically. You need to be doing those all the time.
Freestanding push-ups.
Freestanding handstand push-ups, I guess, is one now too that you got to be doing.
So we threw you for a little bit of a curveball at the beginning. Yes, technically this CrossFit Games season starts for everybody in February because the CrossFit Open starts. However, for these level athletes that we're talking about and what it takes to get to the next level, the Open's a joke. The Open is a joke now no matter what. It's like top 10%, which is like 88 million people. All you gotta do is sign up and you're like in the next bracket now because they want your $50. Which, hey, CrossFit, good on you. Good on you. But for you who's going to go to the CrossFit Games, really your games start and your off season ends, and the games will really start when you start preparing for that sanctional. That's pretty much what happens. I would say.
Exactly. It's weird to think about it that way because that's not the start of the season, but it is now the new start of your season. So getting to the end of this, rest time frame or whatever, or off season.
So next up, we're going to talk about just a little bit about the sanctionals, because we know it's getting a little bit past the off season, but we do want to end it where we're going to go, and that's not peaking too early. So if you see these athletes like Brent Fikowski comes to mind, maybe Andy Thor's daughter, Christy Aramo, one of your picks. These people barely made it. These athletes barely made it, but they weren't peaking at that time. Did they cut it a little bit closer? Sure, but I'm assuming that they truly believed in their programming and the nutrition and everything they had set out, where they spent so much time on their weaknesses that they knew if they get to the CrossFit Games, that's what's going to happen. And honestly, if they went to the CrossFit Games and got 20th place or worse, that's a failed year. That's a complete failed year. So they'd probably rather not go, work on their weaknesses all year long, and absolutely demolish the games than go and look like an idiot. All right, so we are done with the sanctionals and we are moving on to the CrossFit Games. Again, we just want to run through it really fast. And now, how much is your programming changing? A whole hell of a lot. Just kidding. Almost none. Because you should have been doing this back in November, back in February, way back before any of this happened.
But there are things that have to change.
There are things that have to change. And in my opinion, one of the most important things is your environment. You've got to get outside. Sweatier grips, you've got to get outside with more odd objects, you've got to get used to being hotter, being warmer while working out. That is difficult. People don't realize it, but that is difficult, and it changes a lot of people's games that don't train that.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And these are the things that you should have already thought about in August. Your mental month off, you should have written down, okay, what can I do to simply make a pull-up harder? Well, maybe instead of going on the spiel bar that I do every single time, I'm gonna put some shitty grips on or no grips, and I'm gonna do it on the crappy bar that no one ever uses in the back room. Like something like that you need to be thinking about, or your coach or whoever is with you at the time, you know? All right, Colin, so I'm gonna throw it out at you. If you had to give these athletes one piece of advice during the off season or during the season or whatnot, what would you say the number one piece of advice would be?
You know, we talked about a lot of good stuff, and that's actually a good question. If I had to say the most important piece of advice that I would give, and honestly that I would give to myself, is that I'm in charge of my own movements. I'm in charge of my own recovery. I'm in charge of my whole season. You cannot look to blame other people. I see that not all the time, but I do see it enough to where I'm like, how are you gonna blame your coach for not programming this? Or how are you gonna blame this for not having this happen? You are in charge. You are the athlete. You are the professional athlete. If you didn't get your weaknesses down, that is your fault. I never saw Matt Frazier say, oh shit, you know, my buddy James or you know, Shane never told me to flip the pig, or whomever he was with at that point in time. It's like, no, he's like, I sucked at flipping the pig because I never did it. And that is ultimately why he became the best athlete of all time, him and Tia.
That's a very good point.
So
Don't blame other people.
For me, blame yourself, figure it out, look yourself in the mirror and say, what could I have done better to be better at this CrossFit Games? It doesn't matter what Joe did over here. It doesn't matter what this team Invictus did over here. I don't give a shit at that point in time. It's what could I have done differently.
Great.
All right, Joe. So what's your most important advice for these type of athletes?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm a big guy on mental toughness and mental preparedness, and I love seeing the athletes that you know, fight and swing in. They do terrible in an event or something like that, whether it's CrossFit or any sport really, and then instead of just, you know, hanging their head and being like, well, I'm fucking done, you know, someone just hit a home run off me in the top of the first inning, like, no, they just like, all right, sweet, now I got something to actually work towards. You know, honestly, it's really the Pat Vellner or, you know, like even any of the top athletes, like how not great he does in that first event, always, I mean, traditionally, and then just continues to kick ass. Or even Justin Medeiros. The dude won, what, one event at the Games this year?
He was always steady, but only won one event.
Yep, exactly. I mean, you have to say mentally extremely strong, and that's probably my favorite attribute, to see athletes have that ability.
Yeah, I agree. I like it.
Train in the off season. All right, guys, so a lot to talk about today about off season, when the off season falls, the important aspects of the off season, and why your buddy is not texting anymore in the off season because he's training his weaknesses when you should be doing the same thing. So if you got anything out of this, you know, we would like to see what you think about the off season. If you agree with some of our points here, or maybe if you disagree with them, awesome. Please drop us some comments. We would love to hear about it. Also, like, subscribe, check you on the next video.